Good afternoon. I'm Anne-Marie Lipinski. I'm the curator of the Nieman Foundation for Journalism, and it's so great to welcome you all here to Littman House for these awards. It's my privilege to welcome you on what is the 15th annual presentation of the Taylor Family Award for Fairness in Newspapers and the 49th annual Worth Bingham Prize for Investigative Journalism. Many of us here grew up or worked in cities where journalism was inextricably linked to a visionary local family. The Grahams of Washington, D.C., the Oaks and Sulzbergers of New York, the Chandlers of Los Angeles, the McCormicks and Medills of Chicago, where I spent much of my career. Today we honor work in the name of two other great American journalism dynasties. One of those is the Bingham family of Louisville, about which I will say more in a little bit. The other is the Taylor family. Where else were the fortunes of a city and a family more intertwined than Boston and the Taylors? The family's commitment to the highest level of journalistic accomplishment was animated in the Boston Globe every day, which the Globe overseen by members of the Taylor family for over 1 century. It was Bill Taylor, Chairman Emeritus of the Globe, who championed the idea of an award for fairness. The prize was one way of giving back to a profession served by 5 generations of his family and to celebrate a value he held very dear. The Taylor Award's origins date to 1999 in a note written to Bill Taylor by former Globe columnist David Nieman. David wrote, "The fundamental challenge of contemporary journalism is to repair the disconnect between journalists and their audiences. At its root is the lack of trust many within the profession perceive in those we strive to inform. We have to earn back our credibility," he said. When Bill Taylor raised those concerns with colleagues at the Globe, the discussions led to the creation of this award as a means to bring focus to fairness on a national level. In support, Bill and members of his family created a $450,000 endowment that supports this annual award of $10,000 to the winner and $1,000 each to the finalists. The Nieman Foundation is very honored to administer this prize. Fairness is an elusive virtue, difficult to prove in the affirmative. It is not merely a matter of he said, she said, a simple act of symmetry, what press critic Jay Rosen has called regression toward a phony mean. The Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Linda Greenhouse wrote about this in Nieman Reports, quoting Joan Didion's observation that fairness is a familiar newsroom piety that operates as the excuse in practice for a good deal of autopilot reporting and lazy thinking. Fittingly, we make this award in the seminar room named for Bill Taylor's father, William Davis Taylor. He was publisher of the Globe from 1955 to 1977. Under his leadership, the Globe became New England's dominant news organization, and we remain grateful that he counted the Nieman Foundation among his core interests. At a critical time in the 1960s, he actually worked very hard to stabilize the fellowship program, which now thrives. Before we turn to our award winners, I would like to recognize an important guest. Please join me in welcoming Stephen Taylor, who served as Executive Vice President at the Boston Globe until 2001 and is the great-great-grandson of the Globe's first publisher. It's so good to have you with us here today. Thank you. So I'd first like to mention our 2 finalists for this award, ProPublica and the Marshall Project, for their work, An Unbelievable Story of Rape. The Marshall Project's Ken Armstrong, who Ken's a Nieman Fellow from the class of 2001, and ProPublica's T. Christian Miller teamed up to explain what really happened to an 18-year-old woman who reported that she had been raped in her apartment near Seattle. Local police investigators doubted her. She recanted and said that she had completely fabricated the story. But Ken and Christian, through careful digging, discovered that detectives hundreds of miles away ultimately could figure out the truth, that the woman had in fact been raped by a serial rapist who had moved to Colorado. Their reporting tells a tale of both incompetence and skill in two different police forces, and we're very honored to present them with one of the finalist awards. The other to ProPublica and NPR, An Insult to Injury, America's Vanishing Worker Protections. This was also a joint investigation. It looked in changing workers' compensation laws, found that states had been chipping away at this system, which had been created to protect workers injured on the job. Among their findings, that legislators in 33 states had passed workers' comp laws that reduced those long-held benefits. Congratulations to Michael Grable and developer Linda Groger at ProPublica, and to correspondent Howard Burkus of NPR. Howard is also a Nieman Fellow from the class of 1998. This is not rigged. The judges are quite independent, but we're very proud when Niemans win. And speaking of Niemans winning, the 2016 Taylor Family Award for Fairness in Newspapers this year goes to the Associated Press. Could reporter Margie Mason please join me? Seafood from Slaves was the product of an 18-month-long investigation that exposed the abusive and inhuman practices common in Southeast Asia's fishing industry. AP reporters tracked ships, located slaves, some of whom had been caged, and followed the trail of delivery trucks to determine where slave-caught seafood was being shipped. They traced fish to a number of major U.S. food retailers, as well as dinner tables, and worldwide, and proved the long-suspected and quite open secret of slavery in the fishing industry. But assuming something is true and proving it are two different things. This is a very complicated story. The reporting led to the release of 2,000 enslaved workers, to jail time for a dozen of the offenders, and to other reforms. The four journalists who worked on the series were the AP's Asia Regional Writer and 2009 Nieman Fellow, Margie Mason, correspondent Robin McDowell, national writer Martha Mendoza, and reporter Esther Hewson. It is my great honor to present the Taylor Award in Fairness to Margie and the other women on the AP team.